There have been a lot of times when it was probably the worst time to be born as a human being. People went from being peaceful hunters and gatherers to starving, dying of deadly diseases, or being brutally murdered by other humans, often in a short span of time. And the worst part, these horrible things mostly happen when you would expect them the least. But what really was the worst time to be alive? Let's start at the beginning. If we go really far back, we'll probably end up somewhere around 74,000 years ago, when the Toba supervolcano exploded and nearly wiped out humanity. When Toba erupted, it launched over 670 cubic miles of ash and debris into the sky, enough material to cover the entire United States in a thick layer. The eruption triggered a volcanic winter so devastating that sunlight was blocked for an estimated 6 to 10 years. Global temperatures dropped by up to 27 degrees Fahrenheit. Plants withered, animals starved, ecosystems collapsed worldwide. For early humans, already struggling just to find enough calories to survive, it was catastrophic. Food supplies vanished, entire landscapes turned to frozen deserts, rivers dried up, forests became graveyards. But how did some humans still manage to survive? Because they were lucky. Some lived far away from the catastrophe and somehow managed to survive. It's estimated that the total human population shrank to fewer than 3,000 individuals, a genetic bottleneck so tight that every person alive today likely descends from that tiny handful of survivors. But somehow, life got better. Until it didn't, and the ice ages hit 20,000 years ago. Imagine the global temperature dropping again, this time by about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Massive glaciers smothered entire continents. Most of the planet became a frozen wasteland, and food became a luxury. But if that wouldn't be bad enough, these dark times also introduced some of the most terrifying predators humans have ever faced. Take the cave lion, for example, one of the largest wildcats in history. If starvation didn't get you, or you survived a cave lion attack, a simple infected cut probably would have killed you. There were no antibiotics, no vaccines, and no emergency rooms, just a lot of chewing on random plants and hoping for the best. And yet, Homo sapiens adapted. They invented tools, mastered fire, and even created early art like the cave paintings at Lascaux in modern-day France. But if you thought natural disasters were bad, just wait until the real disaster strikes, because nature can't do what one human can do to another. Your ancestors probably lived somewhere between China and Europe in the 1200s and 1300s. If so, they probably heard of Genghis Khan. The Mongols, under his rule and later his descendants, had a strategy. Show up fast, hit hard, and leave nothing standing. Entire cities were wiped off the map. Populations were slaughtered. Survivors, if there were any, were sometimes used as human shields in the next battle. Torture was deeply inflected in the Mongolian culture. But why didn't the people fight back or flee their villages? Here an example of the average Mongolian fighter. Mongol horse archers could hit targets from 300 yards away while riding at full gallop, basically inventing mobile warfare centuries before tanks existed. So just fighting back, if you are not a well-trained soldier, was probably hopeless. Historians estimate that the Mongol invasions killed around 10% of the world's population, at a time when the global population was already tiny compared to today. But if you somehow got lucky and survived the horrible torture and brutal raids, this disease would have probably killed you, the Black Death. In 1347, Europe got an unexpected package from Central Asia, courtesy of some highly motivated fleas, and things went downhill fast. The Black Death, or bubonic plague, tore through towns and cities like a biological wildfire. It was caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis and traveled on rats, fleas, and humans who had absolutely no concept of personal hygiene. Once it hit, survival became a lottery. You could catch it from a handshake, a shared cup, or just by breathing the same air as an infected person. Symptoms included giant swollen lymph nodes, fever, vomiting blood, and death, usually within a few days. It's estimated that somewhere between 30% and 60% of Europe's population was wiped out in just a few years. Entire villages were abandoned, economies collapsed. But why didn't doctors help the infected? Doctors during that time wore those creepy bird masks filled with flowers, because apparently vibe checking the plague was peak medieval science. So in other words, the doctors during that time had no idea what they were doing. And yet somehow, against all odds, a few stubborn, desperate humans managed to survive. You exist because they didn't give up when everything else did. So now, tell me, what do you think? How do you think your ancestors survived?